who yells at a struggling mom in a cafe, only to fall for her weeks later when he finds out she's a millionaire. Ethan Reid was just a tired single dad, trying to get his toddler to nap over lunch. He didn't expect the crying baby at the next table to trigger a confrontation. And he definitely didn't expect the woman holding that baby, exhausted, disheveled, and on the verge of tears, to be the most unforgettable person he'd ever meet. When fate brings them together again, nothing is what it seemed. Not the argument, not the woman, not even his own heart. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The tantrum started somewhere between the grilled cheese and the second juice box. Ethan tried to stay calm, gently bouncing his 3-year-old daughter on his knee as she squirmed and wiped her ketchup-sticky fingers on his sleeve. The cafe was too warm, too loud, and filled with the exact kind of stress he thought he'd avoided by choosing a quiet corner booth. "Daddy, my socks hurt," Ava whimpered, tugging at her shoes as if they were medieval torture devices. "I told you not to wear the sparkly ones," he muttered, crouching down to fix them just as a sharp, high-pitched cry pierced the air. Not from Ava. A baby. A very loud, very distressed baby. At the next table. Ethan flinched. The crying didn't stop. It only got louder. The baby's face was scrunched into a red, wet ball of misery, and the woman holding him, hair messily tied back, a spit-up stained cardigan slipping from her shoulder, rocked him in tired, frantic motions, shushing, bouncing, pleading. 5 minutes passed. 10. And Ethan's patience snapped. "Could you maybe do something?" he asked louder than he meant to, turning toward her. "Some of us are trying to eat here without going deaf." The woman froze. So did the baby, briefly stunned by the shift in energy. She looked up at him slowly. Her eyes were dark with exhaustion and something else, pain, maybe, humiliation. "I'm trying," she said, voice low but sharp. "He hasn't slept in 2 days. Neither have I." "Well, congratulations," Ethan snapped. "You're sharing that experience with the rest of the cafe now." "Daddy," Ava whispered. "You're yelling." He hesitated, looked down at his daughter, then back at the woman whose jaw was tight enough to break. The baby started crying again, harder this time. The woman stood suddenly, grabbing her diaper bag with one hand and her child with the other. "Don't worry," she said. "I'll spare you the noise." She was gone before he could think of a response. The silence that followed was worse than the crying. Ava stared at him. That lady looked sad. Ethan ran a hand down his face. "Yeah," he said quietly. "She did." They finished lunch in silence. 3 days later, he saw her again. It was at the community center across town. Ethan was picking up Ava from art class, her glitter-covered hands proudly clutching a finger-painted elephant. As they rounded the corner toward the exit, he almost walked straight into her. Same tired eyes, different outfit, clean, professional, somehow effortless. "Oh," he said, freezing mid-step. She blinked. "You," Ava piped up. "You're the sad lady from the cafe." Ethan felt his soul exit his body. "Ava." But the woman let out the smallest laugh. "She's not wrong." He exhaled, awkwardly shifting Ava to his other arm. "Listen, about the other day, I was out of line. Totally. You were doing your best and I didn't see that. I'm sorry." She nodded. "Thanks. That actually means more than I thought it would." A long pause stretched between them. Ava was already distracted by a poster with sparkly stars on it. "I'm Ethan," he offered finally. "Clara." she replied. Nice to meet you again, under less miserable circumstances. He smiled. I'd say this qualifies. She gave a soft, tired chuckle. I was just here to pick up an enrollment form for my son, starting daycare next month. You live nearby? Yeah. Moved recently. Ethan glanced at her, trying to reconcile the version of her from the cafe with the one standing here now. Poised, gentle, but with something guarded in her posture. Well, he said, if you ever need a quiet coffee or someone to hold a baby while you breathe for 5 minutes, he trailed off. I mean, that came out weird. Clara smiled. No, actually, it didn't. They parted ways a few minutes later, but not before exchanging numbers for daycare tips, she'd said. And maybe, just maybe, something more. That night, while Ava slept curled up with her elephant painting beside her bed, Ethan stared at his phone. Clara's contact sat there quietly, unread. He thought of the cafe again. Of her face, the weight behind her eyes. And he had the sudden, unmistakable sense. That wasn't the last time she'd surprise him. A week passed before they saw each other again. This time, it was at the playground behind the community library, the one with the cracked fountain and the lopsided dinosaur slide that all the kids somehow loved anyway. Ethan had just finished convincing Ava not to eat a suspicious pine cone when he heard it, the sound of familiar soft humming. Not a child's voice. A woman's. He turned and there she was. Clara. She was swaying gently on a park bench, cradling her son, now asleep, in a light gray sling pressed to her chest. Her eyes were closed, face tilted toward the sunlight as if stealing one quiet second for herself before the world noticed she'd paused. Ethan approached slowly, Ava bounding ahead of him with a shriek of joy that shattered the moment. Clara's eyes flew open. Her hand instinctively cradled the baby's head. Then she smiled. Hey, she said, adjusting the sling slightly. Fancy seeing you again. I'd say we keep running into each other, but I think Ava has a radar for moms with snacks. Ava twirled dramatically. I like her, she declared. She's not mad at you anymore. Clara laughed, a low, surprised sound. She's honest. I like that. They sat him beside her on the bench, Ava drawing invisible shapes in the dirt. Your son asleep? Ethan asked. Miraculously, yes. If I so much as sneeze, he'll wake up screaming. Ethan nodded toward the sling. He okay? Clara hesitated, then nodded. Colicky. And still adjusting. It's been a year. The words were simple, but heavy. Ethan didn't press. He just waited. Clara glanced at her hands. His father passed away 6 months before he was born. Car accident. We weren't married. The press didn't care about that part, they just wanted headlines. Ethan blinked. Wait, the press. She looked at him then, really looked. You don't recognize me, do you? He paused. Should I? Clara Ellings. My late fiancé was Caleb Rowan. Tech startup turned billion-dollar acquisition. I inherited everything. And I didn't want any of it. Ethan stared at her. The name did sound familiar. The story, too. He remembered reading something about a young CEO's death, a grieving fiancé, too private to comment. And suddenly the way she held herself made sense, the exhaustion, the guarded smile, the instinct to vanish. Wow, he said finally. I'm sorry. That's a lot. It is, she said simply. And also not something I usually lead with. But you've already seen me at my lowest in a coffee-stained cardigan, so I figured, why not? He smiled, soft. I liked you better like that, honestly. You looked human. Something shifted in her expression, not quite a laugh, but close. You're different from the people I've been around lately, she said. I'm just a guy trying to make sure my daughter doesn't eat glue sticks. Not exactly Wall Street material. Clara looked at Ava, then back at him. That might be exactly what I need right now. They sat like that for a while, talking, laughing, letting the kids pull them into their small, messy universe. And when the sun dipped low and Clara stood to leave, Ethan found himself not wanting the moment to end. Do you want company sometime? He asked before she could walk away. Like not in a crisis or near tantrums. Just coffee, or a walk, or sitting on a bench again but on purpose. Clara didn't answer right away. Then she smiled. I'd like that. 2 days later, they met for that walk. No babies, no glitter. Just two people circling the small lake behind the rec center while geese honked like chaos demons in the distance. She told him about growing up with too much expectation and too little love. He told her about his failed marriage, how Ava's mother had left when the pressure of parenthood became too heavy. I swore I wouldn't date again, Clara said, towing a leaf with her shoe. Not seriously. Not with a baby. Not after. I get that, Ethan said. I swore I wouldn't fall for someone who made me feel like I was the one being saved. Clara looked up sharply. And do I? Ethan held her gaze. Maybe. That night she texted him a picture. Her son, wide-eyed, clutching a rattle like a tiny weapon, and Ava beside him, smiling so big it looked like her cheeks might pop. Caption: They're already co-conspirators. Ethan texted back, Guess we should get used to it. Clara replied, I'm trying. Really trying. He stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Me too. And for the first time in a long while, both of them believed it might just be possible. They never called it dating. Not officially. It was coffee if you're free, or want to meet at the park again. But over the next few weeks, Ethan started noticing things. Like how Clara always scanned a room before sitting down. How she wore sunglasses even on cloudy days. How her smile never quite reached her eyes when someone pulled out a phone nearby. She didn't like attention. Not the innocent kind. Not the kind that lingered too long. He asked her once, on a bench under a canopy of trees where their kids played nearby, Are you okay with people knowing about us? Clara had looked at him like he'd spoken a language no one had dared use with her in months. You think people are watching? She asked, almost teasing. I think you are, Ethan said softly. Every time. She hesitated, then nodded. Because they are. Always. Someone wants a photo, a story. I smiled once in line at a pharmacy, and it ended up in a tabloid. Eris finally moving on? He winced. You didn't sign up for that. I signed nothing. Caleb did. And when he died, they shifted their spotlight. Ethan took her hand, warm and trembling. I don't care if the world's watching. Let them see me hold your hand. But he saw the way her fingers tensed, how her eyes drifted past his shoulder. Always checking, always guarding. That tension didn't go away, especially not the night her name trended on Twitter. He saw it before she did. Ethan had just put Ava to bed and was scrolling absent-mindedly through news headlines when her face, a candid photo, blurry but unmistakable, appeared beside the words, Clara Elling's seen cozy with local unknown man. New romance or rebound? His heart sank. The photo was from the park. The two of them on the bench, laughing, Ava in Clara's lap. The article speculated about Mystery Man, included intrusive commentary about Clara's parenting, and even hinted she was recklessly endangering her late fiancé's legacy. He dropped his phone. By the time he picked it back up, Clara had already texted him. Did you see it? Yes, he replied. Are you okay? No. He didn't hesitate. 30 minutes later, he was at her place. A modest home tucked behind a row of quiet trees, not far from where the city lights dimmed. Clara opened the door in sweatpants and a college sweatshirt too big for her frame. She looked smaller somehow. Less fire, more smoke. Ethan stepped inside and pulled her into a hug. They don't get to do this, he said. They don't get to take this from you. Clara didn't cry, but she shook a little in his arms. "It's not just me," she said. "It's you. And Ava. They'll come after you next. Dig. Twist things. I've seen what they do to people who get too close." He stepped back to look her in the eyes. "Let them. I have nothing to hide." She exhaled shakily. "But I do." There it was. The wall she hadn't meant to let fall. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Not of loving you. Of what happens if I do it out loud." Ethan's voice was low, steady. "You don't have to love me in headlines. Just here. Just now." She closed her eyes. He kissed her forehead gently. "Let me help carry this," he said. "You don't have to do everything alone." But the truth was, she didn't know how not to. The next few days passed in a blur. Reporters loitered near her neighborhood. Someone from her late fiancé's board sent her a message, implying that her public appearances might undermine her position as trustee. It all started to cave in. So Clara did what she'd always done when things got too loud. She disappeared. No calls. No texts. Ethan waited 2 days. Then 3. By the 4th, he knocked on her door. No answer. He stood on her porch, holding a small stuffed elephant Ava had picked out for the baby, and wondered how something that had felt so right could vanish so fast. He didn't hear from her for another week, until the letter came. Not a text, not a voicemail. A handwritten note slipped under his door, sealed in a white envelope with no return address. It read, "I'm not running from you. I'm running from the version of me they've made me become. But maybe I've been doing that long before we ever met. Tell Ava thank you for the elephant. Tell her I wish I were braver. I'll find a way to be." No name, but he didn't need one. And still, he didn't give up. The letter lived in Ethan's coat pocket for 8 days. Folded once, slightly creased at the corners. He read it in the parking lot at work, between errands, at night when Ava was finally asleep. He didn't tell anyone about it. Not even his mother, who called twice a week to ask if he was eating real food. And then, as suddenly as she'd vanished, Clara returned. It happened on a Saturday. The farmer's market was in full swing. Warm cider, local honey, and the same accordion player who'd been there every fall since Ethan could remember. He was crouched in front of a barrel of apples, letting Ava pick out the shiniest red one. When he felt a presence behind him, he turned, and there she was, hair windblown, coat unbuttoned, baby carrier snug against her chest, and those eyes. Tired, yes, but clearer somehow, as if the storm had passed. "Hey," she said quietly. He stood slowly. "I didn't expect." "I know." Ava spotted her and squealed, "Baby lady," before throwing her arms around Clara's leg. Clara laughed, unsteady. "I missed her." "And me?" Ethan asked softly. Clara's face sobered. "You most of all." They walked, slowly, through the rows of vendors. Ethan didn't ask questions. Clara didn't offer explanations. The silence between them wasn't sharp this time, just cautious, worn in, familiar. At a quieter spot near the edge of the lot, Clara finally turned to him. "I went to the board," she said. "Told them I wouldn't be attending their winter gala, that I'm stepping back permanently. I don't want to be the woman they built stories around anymore. I just want to be me, whoever that is." Ethan nodded. "Sounds like a start." She hesitated, fingers brushing the strap of the baby carrier. "Do you still want to be part of that story?" she asked. "Even if it's small, quiet, not headline-worthy." Ethan didn't answer with words. He reached forward, took her hand gently. Not as a question, not as a gesture, but as something certain. Ava tugged his jacket. Can we get caramel apples now? He looked at Clara. She smiled. Let's get 3. Later that day, Clara came over for dinner. The first time since the photos, since the silence, since everything nearly crumbled. She brought a bottle of wine and a pack of baby wipes. Ethan made pasta. Ava insisted on lighting candles. Because it's a fancy dinner now. They ate at the small table that had seen more spilled juice and forgotten vegetables than romance. And somehow it felt exactly right. After Ava fell asleep, mid-sentence, curled under a blanket fort of her own making, Clara and Ethan sat on the couch, 2 cups of tea steaming between them. I kept your letter, he said finally. Her eyes met his. I thought you might. I kept the elephant too. Clara smiled, but there was something uncertain in it. Do you forgive me? For disappearing? Ethan leaned back, watching the shadows flicker on the wall. I think I was never angry, just afraid it meant what we had didn't matter to you. It did, she said. It scared me because it mattered too much. He looked at her. Really looked. Then don't run from it, he said. Run with it. If it has to be hard, let it be hard. But not alone. Clara reached for his hand. No more letters, she whispered. No more disappearing, he replied. The baby stirred in the carrier on the floor. Clara bent to gently lift him, rocking slightly until he settled. I named him Miles, she said. After my grandfather. I think he would have liked you. Ethan smiled. I already like him. He's quiet. Smart. Clara gave him a look. He's 5 months old. Still smarter than half the adults I know. They laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it was shared. And it was real. The first snow came early that year. Tiny, soft flakes drifting down like they weren't in a rush to land. The world looked quieter, somehow muffled and brighter all at once. Clara stood at the window of Ethan's apartment, Miles cradled in one arm, watching Ava press her face to the glass and declare that snowflakes were tiny space fairies. Ethan stood behind her, his hand resting lightly on the curve of her back, as if afraid that if he let go, the moment might vanish. I got an offer last week, Clara said suddenly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. For what? A job. Quiet one. No spotlight. Foundation work. Helping low-income families access postnatal care. Behind-the-scenes stuff. They don't care about my name. Just my brain. He studied her face. Are you going to take it? Clara nodded. Yeah. I think I want to help people like me. Like I was. Like I still am some days. Ethan stepped closer. So, you're staying? Her smile was soft. If you'll have me. You're already here, he said. You've been here for a while. She reached for his hand. She gestured around the room to the toys on the floor, the laundry half-folded, the quiet, this used to scare me more than the cameras. But now it just feels right. That night, they had dinner together. Again. Not as guests. Not as almosts. But as something more solid. More chosen. Ava insisted on setting the table fancy again, complete with folded napkins and a place card that read Sky Lady in sparkly marker beside Clara's plate. Miles gurgled happily from his bouncer, and Ethan tried and failed to make boxed mac and cheese look gourmet. After Ava's bath, Clara helped her brush her teeth while Ethan rocked Miles in the living room, humming a tune he didn't realize he remembered until it came out of his chest, something his own father used to sing when the house was falling apart. And holding your child was the only thing you could fix. Later, after the kids were asleep, they sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, the snow still falling outside. I was thinking, Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper, we never got a real first date. Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. We got a yelling match in a cafe. Very romantic. She nudged him gently. I'm serious. Okay, he said. Let's have one now. She blinked. Now? Sure. Right here. First question, what do you want in 5 years? She tilted her head. To still be tired, probably, but maybe with a slightly bigger couch and a dog named Sandwich. He laughed. Solid plan. She looked at him. And you? He leaned in. To be wherever you are. That's it. Clara kissed him. Not out of impulse. Not because it was expected, but because there was nothing left to say that could mean more. The snow kept falling. And in a tiny apartment full of toys and tea mugs and dreams stitched together from broken pieces, something whole took root. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for both of them, for Ava, for Miles, for the future they didn't know they were building, that was more than enough.